Peace and blessings, everyone. This is Misal Bay, aka Warlock Asylum, coming at you once again with another episode of Raw Talk. And today we're going to be talking about devotion to Santa Muerte, one of my favorite topics. And, basically, my premise for making this video was a lot to do with, some of the stories that you hear about in the media, that she's a narco saint and that, she's revered by a lot of leaders and drug cartels and things of that nature, which is true. She turns no one away. But a lot of people, a great majority of people who venerate Santa Muerte, devotees like myself or whatever, they're involved in, they come from different walks of life, whether they be involved in law enforcement or education in schools, entertainers, politicians, just different people. And I find it kind of ironic that before it was known how massive, veneration for Santa Muerte was, devotion to Santa Muerte was, even outside of Mexico, when it was just thought to premiere in Mexico, the media just completely would just trash her, you know what I'm saying? Then once they start seeing that, people in different areas of the world, venerated her, it started to get a little bit more like, okay, curious, just in lack of a better word. And I thought that was like, a great disrespect, to Mexican people and Mexican culture. So now what I begin to see is like you have these characters who go out, staging these fake videos about banishing, the energies of Santa Muerte. One particularly I saw was this lady, and the whole thing was kind of like fake in my opinion. I looked at the dude, he looked like somebody who got a bad form of hair dye, red hair, sideburns guy. And, he has this big crucifix, the steel crucifix. And the woman's telling some story how she was involved in Palo Mayombe, and the people in her teaching her Palo Mayombe introduced her to the Mexican folk saint Santa Muerte. And so now she's coming under the dominion of this guy who decides to make a show out of it and put it on YouTube, which if you're involved with those primal currents, I seriously doubt that someone on YouTube could do something like that. I just don't see it. I've been involved in, different things, and I've seen stuff happen to people, and sometimes it takes years to get. I remember in the military, there was this guy, he kept messing with these Chinese people overseas. So people like, man, you're going in too deep. Don't chill out or whatever. So he kept, doing whatever he was doing. Next thing you know, these Chinese people, they went and did whatever they had to do. And this guy had 2 lumps, like horns, coming out of his head. I kid you not. It took this dude 5 years under the study of some West African shaman to finally get that removed. You know what I'm saying? And so, so the idea of just saying that you are involved with something and then you go online and someone could do a banishing of it, then you turn your life over to a Protestant Christ. I just don't believe that. I do think that in discussion, because I've heard this discussion recently, actually on one channel that I subscribe to about, Santa Muerte and religion. I always honor Santa Muerte, as in her cultural aspect and her Catholic aesthetic. So her folk Catholic aesthetic. So, when I see people come along, it's been discussed like, is this a practice? Is it a religion or whatever? I would say that, most things that are religions now began as a practice in some point in time. However, what I would say is that, a religion and the spiritual practice of spiritualism is vastly different. And the reasons being is that, a lot of times you can go to a church and you can walk away, like kind of unscathed, in the way you can't, but in the way you can. You may lose association with friends, things of that nature, right? But if you're involved in some primal practices, those things are going to stick with you. So if you put certain things out, it can secure your right to practice, or it can secure someone who's in prison right to practice. So that's a good thing in that context. But as far as like it being a belief system that you could just walk away from, like you can with some religions, that's entirely like a different thing. And even in like some Western schools of occultism and things of that nature, they ask you, do you have a religious practice? Because this is not religion. Don't try to make it religion. I had a friend who is into Golden Dawn, and that's exactly what they told them. And then even when you look at some of the grimoires and stuff, some of these grimoires or some of these systems were created by people who were devoted to some religion, like John D. Edward Kelly, Enochian. They were Protestants. Marie Laveau was a Catholic. You have other Arab grimoires who were written by Sufis and some, sages and Taoism. When you go further east into Oriental studies and stuff like that, So I just one thing I did want to bring out was I was reading this book. It's called The Demon Sermon on Martial Arts and Other Tales. It's an excellent book, and I thought about devotees to devotion to Santa Muerte and reading that book, because there's an analogy about the gods of poverty, where this guy, he had a dream and he saw the 7 major gods of Japan and how they served the aristocrats. And then on the other side of the room, he saw these gods that were dressed in poor rags and dingy. And he was like, man, who are these people? You know what I'm saying? And, those deities were like, well, we're not the 7 gods apart. We're not the 7 lucky gods of Japan. We're the gods that you were born with. And he's like, man, I want to, hang out with the aristocrat gods, whatever. And they were like, you know what? At the end of the day, those gods have no virtue, because of how they're able to influence those, emperors and things. And he got into how, like, a lot of the deities of the sages were actually gods of poverty. And that made me think of, Santa Muerte, the whole movement and how it emerged and everything like that, So in my, personal journals, Santa Muerte is someone that is you meet Santa Muerte in the heart. You know what I'm saying? Because when she comes to you, that's what stops. Ultimately, it's the heart. So that's where you meet her. That's where you bond with her. Now, you may have had, all these other things going on, these experiences that bring you to this, but all these experiences bring you to make this, heart connection. You know what I'm saying? And, if a person's interested in, pursuing Santa Muerte, don't let the media sort of distract you if you feel that connection, and it takes time for that connection to grow. But definitely, in America, a lot of times things get trendy or whatever, so you want to be honest with yourself and exercise care. I'm not people know me for certain things, but I've never been a genie in the bottle dude. Like, I've never been someone just calling something up or trying to make a connection just to get a whole bunch of cookies and stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like, you think about it, like if a guy, he's dating a woman or whatever, and he's telling her whatever he needs to tell her to sleep with her, how would the woman feel when she discovers this? You know what I'm saying? So, you want to approach your practice with respect and honor, because it can rock your world and rock your life. You know what I'm saying? I've always been serious about that, and always admonish other people to think seriously. You know what I'm saying? It's not a plaything, so to speak. One thing I do find interesting is, like with the instances with the clergy or whatever, and there's one guy who's doing videos, and he's talking about he's walking the streets of Mexico and he's banishing Santa Muerte and he's feeling demons, and you don't even realize he's possessed. He's the one that's possessed. You're gonna come in someone's land. You're gonna do a replay of the year 1519. Come into somebody's land in Mexico and tell them what they should accept and what they shouldn't accept. You know what I'm saying? You're demonic. You know what I'm saying? Because you're, in some ways, you're exemplifying some of the reasons why, you know, people in this hemisphere was disenfranchised. And you're going around thinking that, you know, you're doing something great. No, you're the one that's demonic. You know what I'm saying? That's why those demons are around you, because they're your own demons that you refuse to face over some, you know, street corner religion that you invested in, you know, or created, and then shooting yourself on video. Like, who does that? If you're really trying to help somebody, who's going to go out there and expose people as if there's some sort of subhuman species and put it on YouTube and you're some big savior figure? This is not 1519. You know what I'm saying? Like, so, you know, you wouldn't just, you know, if you come in contact with that stuff and you know, that stuff is not authentic. That's just what I'm saying. It's just some people, when something becomes a subject of conversation, it rises in popularity. You're going to hear all sorts of stuff. You're going to have people who are against it. You're going to have people who, you know, who are for it. You're going to have people who are for it who don't even really know about it. You know what I'm saying? You know, but you have to decide, you know, where do you stand in this? And you have to be honest. You have to look at yourself and to be honest. You know, everyone has a different aspect. I explore spirituality as a way of self-cultivation, and I believe that man, you know, man and woman have certain, you know, properties within themselves that if they complete, you know, they can move on, and with sort of like an internal consciousness. You know what I'm saying? They could gain enlightenment, you know what I'm saying? And how those practices occur is not always in the setting of what people think. Sometimes those practices can occur, or what you need to occur to cultivate that usually happens in, you know, a way of like life and death. You know what I'm saying? When you're in that grind, you know what I'm saying? And so, you know, like in Taoism, they say, if you want to gain enlightenment, don't join a monastery. That's what they say in Taoism. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, because you have to demonstrate what you are really. You know, you have a lot of people, you know, who has these aesthetics, and that's mostly what they are, is aesthetics. You know, it looks nice. You know, they bring in, you know, different things from different, you know, areas of the spiritual world, quote unquote, and, you know, they can't seem to bring their understanding into the world. You know what I'm saying? And that's ultimately what it's for, because you are a spiritual being. As you are a spiritual being, and some people may exercise those things differently. A wide range of, you know, they may exercise that in different ways and shapes and form, but you are an extension of the spiritual world. Just what is, in the sense that you're even watching this video. You know what I'm saying? And when you look at, you know, the growing devotion to Santa Muerte, you know, it's going to be what it is, because the stars are right. These guys in clergy or the Catholic Church condemns her, which they've condemned other folks, saints in Mexico that later became accepted. But I would say that when you look at what Santa Muerte represents, and, you know, some of her devotees, how they may rank, for example, you know, a lot of people in the LGBT community who live in alternative sexual lifestyles, people would say, you know, a lot of them find protection, you know, under her cloak. Now, I find it ironic that as her veneration is growing, you also find mainstream, you know, religions coming to accept the LGBT community in their congregation. So you may find a gay rabbi. That's something that you may find in Reform Judaism. You may find a pastor who marries two men. That's something that you may find in in different arenas. So what these religious organizations don't realize is that that energy is penetrating, you know, that, those, it's penetrating the world regardless of whether you have a church or not. You know what I'm saying? Is what I mean to say. And recently I heard this. I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna sum it up. But I didn't want to make a long video, but I just wanted to let people know, like, if that's what you feel in your heart, you know what I'm saying, then anything that's done in sincerity and love, I think, has ultimately a good ending, just because of some of the things that you learn about yourself and taking that voyage, you know what I'm saying? And, it's a beautiful thing. There was a video I watched, Janelle Longoria. You should check out some of her videos if you haven't. She's someone that I enjoy watching. But anyway, she had made a video about, Santa Muerte practice and, will it become a religion or whatever. And, like I said, things more metamorphosized because also like a child, and I hate to, use this analogy, there's no disrespect, that's growing, so is the paradigm of that growing. The paradigm of that is growing out as well. So you may see certain things added. As far as religion is concerned, I imagine some people may pursue that just over legal reasons of being able to practice. I think a lot of religions that we see was based on that idea, like, hey, if I legalize as a religion, then I could practice this even if I go to prison, which is the case, right? However, one thing to consider too is that religious, it can give the person who's coming into that world a different view because, like in a mainstream religion, you can switch that up. You might lose some friends or whatever, and you may be affected depending on how deep your devotion was. But definitely, if you're involved in a primal form of spiritualism, you just can't cut that cord like that. You know what I'm saying? Especially if you ask for favors and stuff, because whatever you ask for, it will disintegrate. And it's not because someone is upset and want to take away their candy. It's just that the way your thinking was, the way your mind was, how you operated, when you remove yourself from that, you're removing yourself from all the connections that way of life had established. You know what I'm saying? So you want to think about, what you're doing, and you want to be self-honest. There's no big eyes or little U's, which in this movement, which is a beautiful thing. You know what I'm saying? You come to it as you do, and there's a lot of people who are elders in the community who could teach, or you can tune in if you want to, or you could just keep your practice, to yourself. A lot of people keep their practice to their own deal because it's cultural. So that, it was passed on through family ties. It wasn't something that you filled out a membership form and obtained. And there's nothing wrong with that either, but it's just, throw some things out in the air. For me personally, I see a lot of that growing. I got it, like, one of the things years ago, I think this is back in 2012, I had wrote an article about Batman originated as a Mayan god. And it was a learning experience for me because I saw how writing, how it could just take off, because I wrote the article. Next thing, 6 months later, I'm seeing this thing on, featured on major shows or in newspapers and stuff. And they didn't give a reference check to what I had wrote, because, when the first couple of people doing, then it just, they just took the ideas I had used and developed their own situation. But it kind of taught me that, like, just because, people and their system was destroyed doesn't mean that those energies are destroyed, and they may reinvent themselves to come in forms of, whether technology or through comic book lore. And the person who's taking it in, they don't know where they're getting it from. They just know, like, hey, I'm inspired. You know what I'm saying? But I always tell people there's no difference between artistic inspiration and spiritual possession. You know what I'm saying? So these are these things remanifest in our world today or whatever. But, if you're a devotee of Santa Muerte, stay strong and, just focus on your relationship and try to procure that. don't think selfishly, you know what I'm saying? So that's all I just want to say. And that's what's really going on. A lot of, if you in it, you love her, you know what I'm saying? So I'm not here to judge or whatever. I'm no like crazy authority on it or whatever. I'm just giving my viewpoint because I just didn't like seeing some of the videos where, people talking all this crazy stuff about, some guy going to Mexico with a Bible, like he's, some sort of savior or whatever, or some guy, who looks like he's a former coke sniffer turned pastor going around, doing some sort of, exorcisms and stuff like that, and thinking that's going to be the way and no one's going to say anything about it. So, that's all I have to give on that input. It's the weekend. Enjoy your day. Be safe. We're going into the holiday seasons. Enjoy. This is me, Sal Bay, aka Warlock Asylum, and I'm saying have a good day.